Alright, welcome back to your Thursday afternoon live stream. Doing some art stuff. Last time I drew this guy, so, check it out. Doing a thing. This time I thought I would like to do a lighting pass on him. But I think the first thing that needs to be handled, oops, that's my example there. I don't really need that. First thing we got to do is, of course, clean these up a little bit. So I'm going to make some folders, and I'm going to put all the visible layers in one folder, and then all of the layers that you can't see, which are all underneath here. Bam. Bam. These are all going to go in a separate folder because, they're still useful. But we are going to, well, let's make them all visible because there's not really a point in hiding them. And then we can make the entire folder invisible, which is the handy part. So pop them all in there, turn that off, there we go. All my reference stuff is invisible. And of course I can go in there and mess around if I need to, but bam, all that's done. So the next thing, I think one thing that helps with lighting is establishing where the character is, that kind of thing. So I'm going to just put in kind of a scene, I guess. And that's going to be a daylight scene. And I'm going to set the canvas first, or tone the canvas first, I should say. Is going to be the first thing that I do. Oop, not in that color. There we go. Well, that blue actually matches his eyes like almost perfectly. Okay, so we've established that he's going to be outside. I think with this light blue color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I think, the oil paint brush. Let me look. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to kind of paint in the background scene. So he's gonna have kind of I want him to be hanging off the side of like a glass building, I think is what I'm gonna do. So in order to do that, I gotta kind of figure out what I want it to look like. There are some beautiful skyscrapers in the world, by the way. But a lot of it is reflecting light, so that's going to be kind of the tricky part. think what I need to do is probably set like the inside of the building's color first. And then we're going to get some reflection off the clouds. Of course, I should put clouds in. I think I need to bring... I'm not quite as good at this part. I haven't done a whole lot with buildings. But I think if I like reflect some of that light from the sky, and then also put some clouds in there. That's starting to look okay. Because you get that nice kind of reflective material going on. And then, of course, I'm going to have to end up warping kind of his own image around it, too. Ooh. I wish I were better at backgrounds. Yeah, I think I need more practice at glass before I try something like that. I do like the idea of him like on a building, something like that, but I think I need a lot more practice at that before I attempt it. Just another texture I need to work on. Okay, so not on a building. What if, like, maybe rock climbing? Well, I could do a building, just make it less shiny. Yeah, okay. I think I'm gonna do that. So a little lighter. And I'm not gonna worry about making it as painty. But I think I just am on board with the idea a little bit too much to let it go now. So this clearly, this part here has got to be some kind of a rail. Or maybe some kind of ledge. You know, some buildings have ledges. You can be Assassin's Creeding on a ledge, right? Should definitely make this its own layer. I forgot to do. Kind of just lining up some pieces given how his hand is behaving. I think what I may do instead of trying to make it painty is trying to maybe do like a more blockish so like when I go to light this, I would just take this and be like, okay, we'll take like a blue-gray kind of thing and then put that on top of there and then have that be like a thing. Okay, so given that he's hitting a ledge or grabbing a ledge, it is gonna be on the side of a building. That means there's gonna have to be stories or windows or something like that. Which means probably, given his height, well, he's actually very tall. But given his height, I think I mean, I don't think he's like an entire story tall. Well, maybe. No, he's not a story tall. He's very tall though. So I'm thinking that the next ledge part is probably gonna be just right down here, like so. Because he's really stretching for that. He's really reaching for it. Okay, so how do we want to construct this building? Well, probably as simply as possible, since I'm not doing a ton of design work here on a building. We just want to make kind of an approximation of the building to suit the purposes of the art. As one does. So we're just going to kind of build it with that in mind. And then I think in the back we'll put some more buildings. Stick with this kind of blue color and just kind of add in some space, or some shapes rather, not really space. I'm taking away space if anything. You know what? I can just use a shape tool. Just make rectangles. Go like that. Yeah, I can totally do that. Let's just do that instead of trying to use the paint tool. Okay. So let's give him a little bit of cityscape. And of course we want to be using different colors for different buildings to add depth and color variations and things like that. So I think that will do just fine. And then this one will make a darker blue. Throw it on there. And then yeah, using the rectangles is going to be way simpler. And you definitely get the idea that he's just from these rectangles actually you get a pretty decent idea of what's going on. At least better idea of what's going on, right? Make sure we add a little bit of variance. And then, do we want to make this brick? I could make it a brick building, like a weird kind of blue brick building. Blue-gray. I haven't really put a ton of thought into the buildings in his world. Like, he is an alien, but I haven't put a ton of thought into the buildings in his world. Probably not that bright blue. I'm gonna end up cutting off a chunk of that. So this is like an old part of the city where the buildings are a little older, and yeah, they're made with like stones and stuff. Is maybe what's going on here. Okay, and then we're gonna crop this, and do I keep, I think I can keep about that much, that's fine. Edit, crop, there we go. And see, we already have a pretty decent idea of what's going on in the scene, because we, you know, put in a background here, and there you go. It looks city enough, I think. So now that we have a semi-decent background, could definitely use more depth and nuance and stuff like that, but I think that would be, that's something that I can also capture in a lighting pass, but on top of that, it's something that I think just more details, like I did with Arc to begin with, would help flesh that out some more. But we're going to just start with this blue. Although I think maybe now that I'm looking at it, I probably would have gone, probably would have had better contrast if I did more of a yellow or a brown. But his city is, the city that he's in, I do definitely have a color scheme for it. It's definitely more white and blue oriented than you know, like browns and reds. So, and green. There's a lot of, it's like green, blue, and white are kind of the primary colors of the city that I have in mind. So the fact that he's also a cooler color is kind of just coincidental. Okay, so now I'm gonna go for a sunlight color sort of effect. And I'm actually going to paint this on top of him. So first off, I want to go down to, up to, never mind. Go on my folder and make sure that I put the setting on through, which will allow any layer type that I use to just automatically allow it to do its normal layer typing. So if I put an overlay layer on through, then it would go overlay just fine. If I put it on normal, then it'll treat it like a normal layer, and it'll only overlay things that are in the same folder, is what that is. So there you go. So anyways, gonna do sunlight, and we're gonna figure out, okay, given that he's on this side of the building, I think I want the sun, first I gotta establish the sun's direction. And I'm thinking it's gonna be pretty bright. It's gonna be like basically not there, but I think it's going to be in front of him, and it kind of from here. So it's going to be in front of him, and it's going to be coming from this sort of direction. So we're going to light him like the sun is directly in front of him. And we are going to allow some shadows that just I don't think would normally be there, because I think it just adds definition. So for instance, you see how I'm not filling out all of his muscles. And I'm allowing the lights to do, or the light and shadows that I'm adding to do a bunch of the work. In defining his form. Now here, this area back here, this is actually behind his shoulder, so this is actually going to be receiving slightly less light. Especially towards the top. So we're just adding that lighter tone over the top. And I'm trying to be careful to add it to spots that I think that would get the most direct light. Because that's what this is for. And in fact, I'm probably going to end up fading out the layer slightly as well. Because one of the great things about lighting is, and lighting layers, is that you can continue to layer them just over and over and over again. Now, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is how this overlay layer is interacting with the line work. I may change the positioning of the layer, but that'll be kind of a down the road thing. And actually the light is coming from there, so he's going to have a lot more shadow underneath his fingers. and a little closer to the building. But it is coming in front of him too, so he's still gonna have plenty of light there. And you can see what I mean, or what I meant in yesterday's stream, where I was talking about the coloration and how he looked more of a brownish, grayish color. That's really because of this lighting that I'm doing. You know what I think I need to do is bring back the muscle layer where I did the musculature study on him. So let's do that. Oh, there we go. Here, and we're just gonna 100%. We're gonna push all of these layers to 100%. There we go. And now we're gonna pick and choose kind of the layers that would be most useful. So it's probably going to be somewhere towards the top. Here we go. So this is our muscle layer. So I may need to redo some of this. I think I skipped ahead a step. Just gonna fade his folder so that you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Actually, it's not so bad. I did change some of the musculature from here down, but it's not so bad. Alright, so there's gonna be there's not gonna be a ton of shadow. I'm mostly adding light. I'll be adding some bounce light, I'm sure. When I get the chance. But with the light coming, and I may need to change the light source if this doesn't prove to be interesting or dynamic enough. But that is absolutely something that I can do if I want to, so. It's really not BD Wong. We're probably going to get more shadows around his groin area because that's going to be where his legs are kind of clenched together like that. And around really just around his legs in general are probably going to receive more shadow just because of how they're positioned. And then his pants kind of flatten a bunch of this, so he's not going to have a whole lot of like muscle definition through his shorts here. Mostly because that wouldn't make sense. And I could use his shorts to create more wrinkles, or I could use the lighting on the shorts to create more wrinkles and do things like that. And in fact, I probably will, but I need to figure out what I want that to look like first. Obviously, this back one is going to have less light on it, or less direct sunlight on it because it's in the back here like this. And we can kind of approximate folds. And creases and such. So like that, kind of a similar situation I did or tried to do with the gloves here. I'll probably have to revisit that. The neck is probably going to get more shadows too, and I think this leg here doesn't really need a ton of light either because it is a back leg, and there's just not a ton of light hitting that one directly. Also might be worth creating kind of almost a drop shadow on the shorts, but gotta make sure that it's not too heavy. Clothing is gonna create a shadow like that, but just gotta make sure it's not too heavy, that's all. Can do the same thing on this glove. Ooh, wrong one. I can smooth that out. Give him a little bit of shading around where the knuckles or the folds in his thumb would be. There we go. Okay, now back to the rest of this. His foot. Now this foot is pretty far back, so it's only going to get a little bit of light. Right, just a little bit. And it's because it's swung back. I mean, it's back, like behind the leg, that kind of thing. So it's going to be back there. Although now I'm forgetting my sun angle. Because it's supposed to be kind of on top. Which I think would push the light part down even more, but also make it wider. Okay. This arm is actually going to get quite a bit of light. Because the sun's kind of right on top of it. But I think it's also going to have more shadows. I'll have to experiment a little bit with this one, I think. Because this side for sure is just going to get so much sun, and then this side, I think probably less. Kind of like that. And then the inside of the glove is, I don't think it's going to be getting that much light, because I think a bunch of it's going to be blocked off. Probably the palm. And then maybe here. And that might be it. I'll revisit that if I need to. I probably will need to revisit quite a bit of this. Just because I'm not confident in my lighting. Specifically, so. But we'll see how it turns out. We're definitely going to get less through this pinch here in the neck. Going to get a little in the front because, you know, it's the front. But then probably very little after that. Okay, so let's bring back, boom, for his face so I can light his face correctly. And I think this is going to be almost his entire face is going to be pretty light. with the most shadows definitely going underneath his brow ridge here. Because it's a pretty pronounced brow ridge. And you can kind of see that now because of how I lit it. Ooh. And the reason I'm not putting a ton of shadows on the ears is because the ears are very thin, actually. Once you get into the this long flappy part of the ear, there's not actually a whole lot there for light to block light. They're more transparent than that. Plus, again, the light is coming from a more forward position, so there's that as well to consider. And I think that's going to be it for this layer. But like, you see how much nicer the shorts are with like the folds and stuff in there? Except I did them wrong. Yeah, this should be a lot tighter here and less here because of where I put those lines. Okay, there we go. Make sure I get a little more going on in these gloves as well. All right. Now I think that is far too bright as it turns out, so I'm actually going to take this layer and tone it down until I'm more happy with kind of how it looks. I think it might be here. At just like 10%. Maybe I turn it up to like 15. No, let's go 25. See how that looks. Nice 25. That actually looks okay. Looks pretty decent. Needs layering. So now I'm going to add more lights. I am going to add shadows eventually, but a lot of that's going to be handled by that just base layer being kind of dark. So anyway, now I'm just going to make another layer and kind of do the same thing, but I'm going to make smaller lit areas where, you know, it's more specific to where the sun is actually shining. And speaking of sun, I need to actually take that away. There we go. So this is going to be a 25. And then this, we're going to go ahead and start it at 100, but it's also going to be an overlay layer. And this is just kind of the same thing, but more specific to like where the highlights are going to be, where the light is going to be hitting the most. So obviously the ears are going to catch a lot of light, and well, really the light's going to go straight through these things. Well, not straight through these things, but you know what I mean. And that, I don't think the teeth need to be any whiter, really. But usually where you'll see the light catch more is going to be around the cheekbones. And any kind of wrinkles and stuff like that. So anyways, if we fade this out, it's just going to see, just add a little bit more definition to the face is really all we're going for. And then, you know, to these various areas. So like this is going to be seeing more light. And in fact, if I did want to make him more, like if I did want to texture him with like fur or something, I'd probably look to do it on a layer like this, like the lighting layer. Because I'd have my basic color patterns done, and then I would just add kind of just how the light would interact with the fur texture. And like I said, these areas are meant to be smaller and more about where the light is directly hitting his body. Kind of regardless of muscle tone, almost. Because this arm is easily going to be getting the most light. Just because of how it's positioned. Ooh. Oh, no, not pencil. Accidentally hit the wrong key, switched tools. I hate when that happens. Okay. Actually, it's supposed to be this, so I can, yeah, smear it just a little bit. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, that looks fine. Now we'll turn this down quite a bit until we're mostly satisfied with how it looks. Oof, that's still a little much. Maybe we turn it down to 15. Okay. And for the last light layer, I want to use white, because this is going to be... He doesn't exactly have a backlight thing that I can put on him because of how I'm having the light come from in front of him. So I can't exactly backlight him, but I can add little details. So for instance, the sun is up there, so we're gonna have just, well, actually it doesn't make sense with his brow ridge to have too much of that going on. But certainly around his nose, because that's going to have the most kind of glistening part to it. If that makes sense. His teeth are already like super white, so that doesn't really matter. I'm actually thinking I can take those nose bits away. They're a little weird looking. But these white lines that I'm adding are directly in the same direction as the sun, and kind of only on the edges that are going to catch the most light as much as I can. Is the idea behind them. Technically, it is a lot like backlighting, the way I'm doing it, but I don't know that I care. Sometimes you gotta have a certain amount of backlighting, otherwise things don't make as much sense. Probably not there, more like here. Because that's where his cheekbone is. And I just broke my own rule. There we go. Probably put one there because of the cheekbone again. No, that's gonna have to be bounce lighting. And here I don't mind getting a little bit messier, because this is just for accents. More than anything else. Probably doesn't need one there. Okay, now let's see about bounce lighting, and I set that to a 50% overlay, so we're gonna come in here, we're gonna do some bounce lighting, and then I don't know that we need a whole lot of shadows for this one. Maybe I add a little bit of shadows, but a lot of him is, just because of the way the light's hitting him, a lot of him is kind of already shaded the way he is gonna be shaded. Anyway, for bounce lighting, I want to take kind of the environment, right? Is the idea behind bounce lighting. So, for instance, the light over here is going to be blue because that's the light of the sky and the light of the city and everything hitting him, right? That's the idea of that. It's literally just the light bouncing off of him. Whatever light that may be. And so for my purposes, I'm essentially going to be just adding, this is going to be a lot more like actual backlighting because of kind of where he's at. How he's swinging through things. I do want to take it down to like a 20%. Maybe a 25, maybe a 50. 50's too much. 50's way too much. 25. Let's do that. Okay. And I think I want to do this in watercolor because it needs to be soft. Wrong button. There we go. Can probably stand to make this real bright so I can at least tell what I'm doing first. And then I can fade it out. I don't like that part. And there we go. So now I actually want to go into, I want to take this folder and I'm going to go invert and I'm going to take this layer and just delete all of the excess stuff. And so he's going to end up looking like that. And now we're going to tweak the level to about 20. So we've got the yellow sunlight, and kind of the blue environment light. We've got a few highlights just because we can. And, yeah, I mean, he already looks a ton more three-dimensional just by adding those lights. I could always try and darken him up in certain spots by adding shadows, but I think it's such a bright, beautiful day out that adding shadows doesn't make as much sense as just layering lights onto him. Oh boy, and there you go. That is a lighting pass. I think if I were to do, I could do a more dynamic sort of lighting where maybe I've got some neon signs going on, or you know, something like that. But for now, this will do. I think we're just gonna leave him at that. Of course, I can also go in and kind of on the same layer create the same sort of lighting. Hang on, let me grab this yellow. Boom, boom, there we go. And I can create a similar effect for these buildings. Oops, that's not right. This one. There we go. This is going to be the majority. Of the light on this building. Make sure we light the ledges. As well. Then on the next layer over, we're gonna have, you know, our bricks. And they are going to be receiving light from specific angles. Hello, cat. I know. And we can kind of just continue making sort of loose brick patterns. Oh my gosh, the cat's going crazy. Except the brick pattern needs to actually be more offset from each other. And with the bricks, it might actually make more sense to add shadows as well. And then this was what? The white? This is the white. So this one is just going to be penciled in. And we're just highlighting the ledges, highlighting a few bricks. Yeah, probably more flat across the top than the corner. I like that better. Like that, and then the bounce lighting, it doesn't really need, because it's brick, it's not too shiny, but I can do it anyway. I don't feel like it would actually add too much to the piece, though. Because it's already super, super blue, you know? And in fact, I need to pick that. There we go. So that when I am on this bounce light layer, it doesn't do weird things. To the rest of him. And there you go. There you have it. From here, I think it really would just be adding more to the scene. More details, you know, kind of sculpt the buildings a little bit better, that kind of thing. But I think this is as far as I want to take this. So we're gonna close that layer, and I'm gonna go ahead and put my John Hancock on here. As they say. Whoop. There we go. And call this one done. Well, I certainly hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. If you are interested in any particular piece of art being done, just give me a shout out. I do take commissions, and I also have some free art slots for my patrons that I'm also currently working on. But that's over patreon.com/Tierwolf. You can check me out there. Probably post this there, as well as some Patreon exclusive content, or at least it's sort of patrons get to see it first before anybody else. And then I start posting it to other places on the internet, because, you know, got to get eyeballs on my stuff. That's how these things work. But that being said, enough shilling. I hope you had fun. I did. And I will see you guys next time for, I don't know, I'll draw something else. Until then, goodbye, friends.